Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Sri Brhad Bhagavatamrita, Volume 2, Chapter 4. Text 226 we'll read again, and we'll read 227 also. They're together. Tat prasadena bhaktanam adhino bhagavan bhavit iti svatantra hanyeva natam dadyan maheshwaraha. By the mercy of pure devotional service, the personality of Godhead, the Supreme Controller, becomes subordinate to his devotees. This, in effect, deprives him of independence, so pure devotional service he rarely bestows. Commentary. Pure love for Sri Krishna Dev is more difficult to obtain than liberation. In the words of Shukadev Goswami, Rajan patir guru alam bhavatam yadunam daivam priyakula patikva chakin korova astvevam anga bhagavan bhajatam mukundo muktim dadati karichit smana bhakti yogam. My dear King Parikshit, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is always ready to help you. He is your master, guru, God, very dear friend, and head of your family. Yet sometimes he agrees to act as your servant or order carrier. You are greatly fortunate because this relationship is possible only by bhakti yoga. The Lord can give liberation very easily, but he does not very easily give one bhakti yoga. Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th Canto, 6th Chapter, 18th Verse. One of Krishna's names is Mukunda, which can be divided into 3 parts: Mu, liberation; Kum, happiness; and Da, giving, meaning that Krishna bestows the bliss of liberation. Or Kum can be understood to mean devotional service. So Krishna is the bestower of both liberation and devotional service. However, although the Lord often awards liberation and ordinary devotional service, he very rarely gives prema bhakti. Why? Some say it is because when Bhagavan, the supreme independent controller of all, gives prema bhakti, he becomes obliged to give up his independence. For devotees who have prema keep him helplessly under their control. Or, taking the title Bhagavan to express his absolute omniscience, the idea is that he knows the impropriety of giving prema bhakti to anyone educated in the rasas of anyone uneducated in the rasas of pure devotion. Other reasons for the Lord's hesitancy to grant prema bhakti will be discussed later on. In next verse, Manye mahapreshcha jananuvashyata nadukha dosha vidhatita kauchana kintu pramodam nija bhakta vatsala tvadin mahakirti gunang stanotisa. In my opinion, the Lord's coming under the control of his dearmost servants creates no unhappiness or fault of any kind. Rather, it creates great joy and broadcasts such glorious qualities of the Lord as his affectionate concern for his devotees. Commentary. Having recounted others' thoughts on why the personality of Godhead rarely bestows prema bhakti, Narada Muni now discloses his own. First, he refutes the idea that the Lord wants to avoid losing his independence. The Lord causes no distress for his devotees when he submits himself to their desires, nor by surrendering his independence does he suffer. Rather, these intimate dealings bring joy to the entire world, and they spread the Lord's fame for being generous and concerned for his devotees. Because the Lord's submission to his devotees enlarges their mutual joy, it is a source of delight rather than distress. Furthermore, because it increases his glories, it is faultless. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chaksha Onminitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Ukam Karoti Vachalam Bangum Langayate Garim Yad Kripatamaham Vande Shri Gurundina Taranam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shanyavari Paschachade Satarane Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Siddhi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. As we mentioned yesterday, the first verse that we read was Narada Muni giving others' opinion. And the second verse that we read is Narada Muni giving his own opinion. They have this opinion, and there's evidence for that opinion, that Krishna doesn't give pure bhakti, prema bhakti, so easily. And there is evidence of that, as we quoted yesterday from Bhakti-rasamrita Sindhu, that even bhava bhakti, but to speak of prema bhakti, two of the symptoms of bhava bhakti is it derides the conception of liberation, and sudurlabha, it's rarely achieved. And Rupa Goswami explains that rarely achieved means that one can go on performing all kinds of practices for a long time without attachment. And if there's no attachment there, or asakti, if there's no attachment to Krishna, it's impossible to get love. Of course, that's easily understood because asakti comes before bhava. And how could one get bhava if there's no asakti? Of course, I didn't know. I just got a message that I didn't know if it was coming from the Bhaktisangama festival, but it seems like everything's okay. And then there's 2 points that makes it, that he gives it rarely. The second is, even if one has attachment, he doesn't give it immediately. So these are 2 points that he makes, Rupa Goswami. And so there's evidence given in Shastra that Krishna doesn't give bhakti so easily. And then this verse is quoted from the 5th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is also given by Rupa Goswami as evidence, where the verse that's speaking to Parikshit Maharaj, he says that Krishna is your guru, your God, your head of your family, your master. Yet I can see that he's also become your servant. Therefore, he's given you devotional service, and he doesn't give devotional service so easily, because when he gives devotional service to somebody, pure devotional service, he gives himself completely. Or as Sanatana Goswami says, he helplessly places himself under the control of his devotee. But yet Narada Muni refutes that and says that actually, I have an opinion also. Now, Sanatana Goswami doesn't state it here, but Narada Muni could very well be referring to what he's seen previously, how much Krishna likes to be subordinate, as he saw in Nava Vrindavan, as Narada Muni saw in Nava Vrindavan, how Krishna was so completely subordinate to Mother Jasoda, to the gopis, to the cowherd boys, and how he was also witnessed in Dwarka, how much Krishna was so subordinate to the love of the residents of Brhad that he was crying in separation, and he already saw this before. And also the description which was given in the first volume, how Narada Muni was embarrassed when he saw how much distress he thought he had caused the Lord, that he didn't even want to get close to the Lord, because he was also distressed that I put the Lord in so much distress by talking about his devotees in Braj. And then Narada had watched the whole event from the sky, as the Lord was completely subordinate to the love of his Braj devotees. And then when they all returned to Dwarka, Narada was too embarrassed to come in the room. And then, why? Because he was thinking, how can I go in the room? How can I come before the Lord? Look what I did by talking about, having a discussion about his Vraj devotees. And he heard this discussion while he was in his room crying. And then he came out hearing this discussion. And then while the discussion was going on, he was speaking about it, he fell on the floor completely unconscious. And then the only way to bring him back to consciousness is that they had to hatch a plan to bring him to Nava Vrindavan, to bring him back to normal consciousness again. And therefore Narada Muni was thinking, I'm the culprit. But then when the Lord told him, come in, please, I want to see Narada, the Lord expressed how grateful he was to Narada Muni. And he expressed the reason why he was so grateful, because when a devotee speaks about and awakens this kind of separation for devotees, it brings the devotee, or brings the Lord, as he himself describes, the highest bliss, the highest ecstasy. And he was thanking him, so grateful to him. And then, of course, Narada Muni, understanding how much pleasure the Lord had received by thinking about his devotees, in Braj in this way, how much he relishes their mood, their control of him, how much they completely put him in a state of uncontrollable, or as the word is used here, helplessness, to be controlled by them. He's helpless. He can't control himself. He's helpless. But he likes it. He relishes at the most. And therefore he says to Narada, thank you, thank you, thank you. He thanks him for this. And he said, and then he also gave Narada the benediction that wherever you go, with whomever you speak, and wherever you please just continue to speak the glories of these devotees and help them to realize the wonders of this most unique love which captivates me more than anything else. He gave them that benediction. First, Narada asked for a benediction, and the Lord said, well, he said, may the devotees always feel that, I think the benediction he was asked for, that the devotees feel that they don't do enough service, they don't have enough love for you, and they don't have enough of your mercy. And Krishna said, but they're already like that way. He said, therefore, he said, I give you this benediction, that wherever you go, please repeat these glories. So now, here's Narada speaking to Gopakumar and Vaikuntha. And therefore he's saying, I have first-hand experience. Others are saying that the Lord doesn't give it out so freely. You know, he's reserved, and he doesn't want to give up his independence, but I have a different experience of how much, and I'm going to give you my opinion, how much he likes it. And he wants to be subordinate. He wants to feel helpless before devotees who love him. And he's not inconvenienced in the least bit. And not only that, it doesn't bring any dissatisfaction to the devotees. The devotees themselves are not thinking in any way that, oh, and awe and reverence, because there's no awe and reverence. This is Bhakta Vatsal. Bhakta Vatsalya, that means there's no awe and reverence. It's the greatest emperor of the Lord's qualities, that the Lord likes to be controlled by the love of his devotees, and the devotees are not feeling any reverence of, what have I done? They're not feeling that way. They understand that Krishna is pleased. When Krishna is pleased, they are pleased. And when, as we spoke about yesterday, when they are pleased, then Krishna is even more pleased. And then when they see Krishna even more pleased, they become more pleased. And the competition simply heightens. And there's no disruption. No disruption. Nobody's complaining that awe and reverence is decreasing. Nobody's concerned. You know, nobody's going to say, hey, look, you know, Krishna doesn't think that way, the devotee doesn't think that way, and anybody who's observing this and observing it and relishing it, and who's seeing it, becomes so captivated by it, they're not thinking, also, awe and reverence is diminishing. This is a problem that's being created. And that's what happens with Gopakumar. Gopakumar, the residents of Vaikuntha, they speak up. They speak up when Gopakumar goes, Gopal! And runs towards him. You know, they speak up, no, wait, there's some diminution of awe and reverence in your behavior, my young boy. And therefore they speak up. But the devotees who actually are captivated by this mood, they're not in the least bit disturbed. Why? Because they see how much Krishna loves it. They see that, and because they want only Krishna's pleasure, why would they think, why cripple Krishna's pleasure by awe and reverence? They want nothing but his highest pleasure. And therefore, they also become greedy. May I someday please Krishna in this way? Just see how much he's pleased. May I someday serve him in a way that he could be so much pleased. He worships devotees. And therefore he meditates. Rupa Goswami explains in Bhakti-rasamrita Sindhu, is that a devotee should meditate on the service of a devotee who serves the devotee in a particular, serves the Lord in a particular way. And he follows in the mood of this devotee's service. Not that he thinks he's serving, but he sees the devotee's service and how much he brings love to the Lord. How much the Lord is pleased by that love. So this is what Narada Muni is speaking to Gopakumar about. He's revealing that my opinion is there's no problem here. He likes it. The Lord likes it. And when I thought of that, I thought of a very wonderful class Prabhupada gave. And I wanted to read just a short reference. It's class, especially because what makes it so wonderful is class was given in 1966, November. And I'm going back to my reflections on Prabhupada's 1966 lectures, and then reflecting how much Prabhupada was, especially when he was reading from Chaitanya Charitamrita, when he was speaking in this way to those who were present in this November 1966. And he was obviously trying to give them some qualification to understand the nature of spontaneous devotional service. And Prabhupada, in this class, he speaks about how much Krishna likes to be controlled by his devotees. And he uses Mother Yasoda as an example. So I'm going to read it, it's short, and then I want to speak about it because it's also connected to Prabhupada's statement about ordinary devotional service, which we brought up yesterday. We brought up the point that Prabhupada said there's 3 types of devotional service. There's mixed devotional service, there's ordinary devotional service, and there's Shuddha Sattva, pure devotional service. And in the commentary that we read, states that, however, although the Lord often awards liberation and ordinary devotional service, he very rarely gives prema bhakti. So I'm going to speak first about, we're going to read Prabhupada's talk in 1966 about how much Krishna likes it to be controlled by his devotees. And then we're going to read what Prabhupada has to say about this different distinctions between mixed, ordinary, and Shuddha Sattva, pure devotional service. And then I wanted to give one example. In fact, I'll give this example now about pure devotional service. It's very nice. I've given it before, but it's a nice example given by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his commentary to Bhagavad Gita verse, Ananyas Chintaya Mam Yejana Payupashante. What's that, 922? I think it's 922. Anyways, he gives, he says, Bhakti quotes, in the commentary, he quotes Gopal Tapani Upanishad. He says, Bhakti is worship of the Lord, concentrating the mind on Him, renouncing all material desires for enjoyment in this world and the next. It destroys all karma. This is Gopal Tapani Upanishad. And then in this translation of the commentary of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur by Banu Maharaj, because my Ananya devotee has no karma due to lack of desire, his happiness is given by me alone. Though I am indifferent to all else, I have great affection for my devotee. This is the cause of my bearing responsibility. This is the part of the verse where he says, Karomi. He says, I carry what they lack. And how he likes to take responsibility for the devotee. Of course, there's that famous story of Arjunacharya. I won't go into that one now. How he was concerned when he saw the word Karomi, and he changed the word, why should Krishna have to carry what I lack? And he changed the word to Vahami, but Krishna didn't like that, and then there's the whole story. So he's saying here, though I am indifferent to all else, I have great affection for my devotee. This is the cause of my bearing responsibility. As well, one should not say that in giving the burden of their maintenance to their worshipable Lord, the devotees show lack of prema. In other words, one should not think that the devotee he's depending fully on Krishna, and he should not think, why should I make Krishna do something? He shouldn't be in anxiety about this. Shouldn't be in anxiety. Although he may, and that's the point about Arjunacharya, he was in anxiety, and that's why he crossed out the word. He was living in poverty. He was thinking, why should I make Krishna carry what I lack? I shouldn't do that. So he changed the word. The word crossed it out. But here Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, no, the devotee shouldn't be in anxiety about that. And therefore he says, one should not say that in giving the burden of their maintenance to the worshipful Lord, the devotees show lack of prema. In fact, they do not give me that burden. Rather, I, by my own will, accept it. It should also be understood that I am not bearing it as a duty in the manner that I create and maintain the universe by my will alone. Rather, being attached to my devotees, I take the greatest pleasure in taking care of their needs, like carrying the weight of one's lover. So he's saying this is how Krishna thinks. Now, of course, Krishna thinks like this about his prema bhaktas, those to whom he's given prema bhakta, prema bhakti, excuse me. But he doesn't feel inconvenienced giving them, although Krishna gives it discriminatingly. But as we understand, Rupa Goswami has expressed that Krishna is a little discriminating. He doesn't give it so freely. But it was also Rupa Goswami who glorified Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he gave it freely. And this is, of course, always the distinction that's being made. In fact, in Chaitanya Charitamrita, it explains, Kaviraj Goswami explains that Krishna was thinking that my different avatars, they come and they give the principles of religion. They teach the different principles of religion to the general populace. But only I, Krishna, only I can come and give prema bhakti in the mood of the residents of Brhad. My other avatars, they don't give it, but I can give it. And then, of course, we understand, all the different incarnations of the Lord. We don't see them freely bestowing prema bhakti. And the two appearances of the Lord that attract all living entities is Lord Ramachandra and Krishna. They attract all living entities. But Ramachandra is known as Maryada Purushottam. And as Maryada Purushottam means Lord Ramachandra came to teach religious principles. And because he came to teach religious principles, he didn't bestow spontaneous devotional service, because if he did, then people would act contrary to religious principles. So he didn't bestow. And Krishna, we don't see Krishna reciprocated with his devotees who descended with him, but we don't see him freely bestowing. So, but still he gives. But he gives after some time. But as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, no discrimination. He comes to give because he is, Prabhupada speaks about in the Nectar of Devotion, that a devotee should appeal to Krishna's compassionate nature. And who is Krishna's compassionate nature? Krishna's compassionate nature is Srimati Radharani. She's most compassionate. In fact, Raghunath Das Goswami in his prayers, he describes, when he speaks about Radharani's compassion, he says that generally we think somebody's heart melts with compassion. But he says Radharani's body melts with compassion. She totally melts with compassion. She is Krishna's compassionate nature. And when Krishna came as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he came in the mood of Srimati Radharani to freely give this ecstatic love, this prema. So, anyways, so Narada Muni was saying, I wanted to read what Prabhupada said. I forgot, I don't want to say it, I digressed, but I went on to a different topic. That in this lecture in 1966, he talked about how much Krishna likes to be controlled by a devotee. And, where is it? Oh yes. I called it, have God. This is what Prabhupada says, have God in your grip. Because this is what Prabhupada says. Why? He says, why should you want to become one with God? Everybody wants to become one with God. Why not become greater than God and have God in your grip? So, Prabhupada states, Bhaktyaham ekaya grhaya shradayatma priya satam. Shraddha atma priyam satam. That bhakti, that process of devotional service, is very dear to the actual transcendentalist. Very dear. Bhakti punati man nishta. Man nishta. To know simply, I believe in God, that is not sufficient. The ultimate goal is to attain very intimate relationship or love of Godhead. That is required. Of course, to know, to believe in God, to accept God, that is all right. It's better than an atheist. But that is not the end. You must develop yourself. You must. You should not simply make God as your order supplier, but you should be order supplier. When I become order supplier to God, that is my perfection. And so long I keep God as my order supplier, that is not bhakti. Generally, people keep God as his order supplier. Oh God, give us our daily bread. I was just listening to a lecture 2 days ago. Prabhupada was speaking in Ohio University in 1969. And Prabhupada was saying, this is not love of God, this is love of bread. And he was speaking to a huge auditorium of students. And the students, all college students, they just broke out in a big applaud. They loved it. They loved it. This 1969 lecture when Allen Ginsberg was present and introduced Prabhupada to speak to them. And Prabhupada said, this is not love of God, this is love of bread. Generally, people keep God as his order supplier. Oh God, give us our daily bread. Oh God, I am in distress. Oh God, I am in difficulty. Oh God, I am. God supplies them. God is supplying. Eku bahonam vedadati kaman. But that is not ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is that you should supply God. God will be dependent on you. That is bhakti. Just like Yasoda Mai. Yasoda Mai, she was so advanced in devotion that God became dependent on her. God appeared as her child. As the child always remains dependent on the mercy of the mother. Similarly, Krishna before his mother, his foster mother, Yasoda Mai, just remained just like dependent. Mother said, my dear child, if you become more naughty, then I shall chastise you. And God is crying, you see? These are the relationship between God and the devotee, you see? One who chastises the whole universe, whole creation, he's afraid of his mother. He becomes dependent as he likes. It is said in the Shastra that when my devotee thinks me dependent on him, oh, I like that. I like that. When my devotee thinks me dependent on him, I like that. I like that. People always worship God as the sublime. But the devotee, they do not worship. They want to serve God as dependent. Just like mother serves the child as dependent. There's no purpose. The mother is satisfied simply by keeping the child in perfect order. Yes, there is no purpose. Similarly, when we shall be inclined to see that he is always satisfied, that is devotion. Then you can have God in your grip. You see? God is so kind that he becomes ajitopi. Nobody can conquer him. But he becomes conquered by this kind of devotional service. You see? Ajitopi. Jitopiasi. He becomes conquered. This is the process of conquering. What is the use of becoming one with God? You can conquer him. You can have him within your grips. Such is the process, devotional service. It is stated here. So this is what Prabhupada is speaking about. This is not ordinary devotional service. This is Shuddha Bhakti, pure devotional service. And he speaks about pure devotional service, ordinary devotional service, and mixed devotional service, specifically in reference to the exact verse that he quoted when he says, oh, I like it. I like it. When a devotee controls me, I like it. It's not an inconvenience for him. He's not inconvenienced, and the devotee, he doesn't feel inconvenienced either. I like it. So, what is it? That verse is in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Mora putra, mora saka, mora pranapati, e bhavi ye more, kari shuddha bhakti. Apanake bhadamani amare samahina, se bhavi hai ami tahara adhina. If one cherishes pure loving devotion to me, thinking of me as his son, his friend, or his beloved, regarding himself as great and considering me his equal or inferior, I become subordinate to him. I'm not going to read the whole purport. I'm only going to read part of it because I think I'm coming to the end of my slot. Although they started me 20 minutes late. So I'm going to steal a few of those minutes. I hope. I don't see anybody from the festival. Nobody's shaking their fist at me. So, purport. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, 3 kinds of devotional service are described, namely bhakti, ordinary devotional service, shuddha bhakti, pure devotional service, and vidha bhakti, mixed devotional service. Then he speaks 2 paragraphs about what is mixed devotional service. I'm not going to go into mixed devotional service because I want to address the words that were being used in today's verse, ordinary devotional service. He gives liberation, he gives ordinary devotional service, but prema bhakti doesn't give so easily, except as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But we're talking about Krishna. We're speaking about Krishna, and that's who Narada Muni is speaking about also. Speaking about Krishna. He's going to speak about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu later in Dwarka. He's going to allude to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu when he speaks about Radharani. And he's going to speak about, because now he's preparing Gopakumara for beyond Vaikuntha to go to Ayodhya and to Dwarka. And then he's going to go to Dwarka, and then Narada Muni, of course, and Uddhava both are going to speak to him in Dwarka. And Gopakumara is still, even in Dwarka, still, Narada Muni has to then in Dwarka tell him about this other place, and he's going to start telling him about what the residents in this other place have. The symptom of their love, which is so characteristic of their love, is dainya, total humility. Total humility, where they think themselves as so totally unqualified. And so he begins describing all the characteristics of this dainya, and he begins to describe and begins to explain that the embodiment of this dainya is none other than Srimati Radhika herself. And he's going to say that I can't even tell you, I can't tell you about this. I can't fully, and you can't fully understand it unless you see it yourself. You have to see it yourself. And then he's going to start preparing him for next stop from Dwarka. But anyways, this is Shuddha Bhakti. Shuddha Bhakti is this pure, unalloyed devotional service which completely captivates and controls Krishna. Ordinary devotional service, Prabhupada is going to speak about here. He says, those who are spontaneously devoted to the Lord and have no aims for material gain are called attracted devotees. They are spontaneously attracted to the service of the Lord, and they follow in the footsteps of self-realized souls. Their pure devotion, Shuddha Bhakti, manifested from pure love of Godhead, surpasses the regulative principles of the authoritative scriptures. Sometimes loving ecstasy transcends regulative principles. Such ecstasy, however, is completely on the spiritual platform and cannot be imitated. The regulative principles help ordinary devotees rise to the stage of perfect love of Godhead. Pure love for Krishna is the perfection of pure devotion, and pure devotional service is identical with spontaneous devotional service. And then he says, flawless execution of regulative principles is exhibited in the Vaikuntha planets. By strictly executing these principles, one can be elevated to the Vaikuntha planets. But spontaneous, pure loving service is found in Krishna Loka alone. That's Prabhupada's commentary to Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila, chapter 4, verses text 21 and 22, when he's speaking specifically about the three kinds of devotional service and specifically about if one cherishes pure loving devotion to me, thinking of me as his son, his friend, or his beloved, regarding himself as great and considering me his equal or inferior, I become subordinate to him. And then Kaviraj Goswami explains, just like Mother Jasoda, she chastises Krishna, and Krishna accepts that chastisement and relishes it. And Krishna's friends, they jump on Krishna's back and they think, what kind of big man do you think you are? Don't you know? They think this way. They think of Krishna as being on an equal platform. And then he speaks about the gopis. And then when Krishna hears the chastisement of the gopis, it steals away his mind from the reverential hymns of the Vedas. Although the reverential hymns of the Vedas may be there in great awe and reverence, glorifying the Lord by the personified Vedas, who know fully about the Lord's divinity and his glories, but the gopis' chastisement, when they speak to him, steals his mind away. He can't keep his mind on these reverential hymns. His mind is drawn to their spontaneous love, establishing this is what Krishna likes. So when Prabhupada says, he likes it, he likes it. This is the same thing Narada Muni is saying. He likes it. He likes it. Others say he's inconvenienced by giving it. I say he likes it. I've witnessed it. I've seen it. And I refute what others say. I have a different opinion. Others may say what they want to say, but I say he likes it. And he's not in the least bit inconvenienced by being totally, helplessly drawn by the selfless love of those devotees who love him in spontaneous devotional service. It's his greatest pleasure. And the devotees who serve him in that way, they are hankering, are those who aspire to serve him in that way. What are they hankering for? Krishna's pleasure. Why shouldn't a devotee want to give what pleases Krishna the most? They're hankering for Krishna's pleasure. The devotee's pleasure, that's always secondary. That comes. It's a byproduct. Devotee doesn't think of his pleasure. He thinks first Krishna's pleasure. We learn that by executing the regulative principles of bhakti. And that's why Prabhupada says in this commentary, we have to learn these things first. We learn this by following the instructions of the spiritual master, following the injunctions of Shastra. We should not in any way think that we can immediately transcend Shastra unless there's attachment, asakti. If there's no asakti, as Rupa Goswami says, how can one come to a higher stage unless the genuine attachment is there? And the way to get attachment, mercy, coming from the devotees of the Lord and coming from the Lord himself. As Rupa Goswami explains, this is the way to come to the platform of bhava. By the mercy of the Lord, devotees completely dependent upon the mercy of the Lord, and also dependent upon the mercy of the devotees of the Lord. This is, anyways, I should stop. I believe I'm over time. And thank you very much. We will end here. We'll continue tomorrow. Narada Muni has more verses. He's going to give more explanations on why he has his opinion. And the next verse also will be more reinforcement about his opinion. And also there'll be a few other descriptions of why Krishna's holds back sometimes. Holds back on giving to those who are not sufficiently qualified, and makes them wait. Doesn't give it to them immediately, makes them wait. Of course, which is another quality of devotional service, is patience. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda. Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sri Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And just so that those of you who are online know, the reason why you can't chant with me is it blows out the speakers and blows out the minds of all the devotees who are sitting in the festival. So we agreed that only me. Jai. All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Hare Krishna.